I'm Cheryl Minot Waters, HM Cragg Sales Manager for the West. Thanks to all of you for attending our Tripp Lite webinar. Please note that during the webinar, everyone will be placed on mute. The presenter will unmute everyone at the end of his presentation. I'm joined today by Mike Swill, HM Cragg's Technical Sales Coordinator for the West, and our manager, Dan Loftus, our Director of National Sales. Let's welcome Corey Humphreys, Tripp Lite Sales Engineering Supervisor.
Thank you very much, Cheryl. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for joining us on this afternoon. Hopefully, everybody got fed and is is okay for. Hopefully, they don't get too sleepy for this presentation. My name is Corey Humphreys. I manage our pre-sales sales engineering department here at Tripp Lite. As most of you are aware now, we're HM Cragg is now the newest distributor for Tripp Lite, and we're very excited to have everybody, and we're really excited to really kick this relationship off and hopefully have a really great 2022. Okay, so who is Tripp Lite? So we are a global manufacturer. Our bread and butter is power quality, but we also do a wide array of other things, rack enclosures, a lot of cables and connectivity, auxiliary cooling products. And we've been in business for 99 years. So next year will be our 100th year in business. We're headquartered here in Chicago, Illinois, so not too far away from where you're headquartered. Some of the things that really stand out for Tripp Lite is our in-house engineers. So they're the ones who are responsible for quality control. They're the ones where we bring with them voice of customer, understand what market trends are, and make sure that Tripp Lite is still relevant and top of mind when it comes to any sort of bleeding edge technology that our customers might require. We do have a really great support team here. It's 100% US based, both the pre-sales, which is my department, as well as the post-sales. So pre-sales is going to be the ones to get on the phone with you and HM Cragg and the end user and just do a discovery call and understand what the unique application is and provide a bill of materials based off that. Hopefully making sure we don't have any sort of RMA situation. And on the other side, God forbid there is a RMA situation, we have a great post-sales technical support team here that's going to help them out with troubleshooting. Availability. So as of right now, it's a little bit of a interesting time for everybody. I know the entire global supply chain is being heavily taxed right now, but historically speaking, Tripp Lite does have a very high amount of ready-to-ship inventory on stock. Our HQ here in Chicago, it's a 1.2 million square foot facility with around about 95% of that being warehousing. So historically speaking, we usually have enough rolling stock in hand to fulfill about 3 months worth of orders. We are going through some constraints like everyone else is right now, but we're trying to get as creative as possible with our suppliers overseas in order to mitigate that. Our selection. So that's one of the big selling points of working with Tripp Lite is the breadth of product portfolio. We have close to 6,000 products as of right now, and we're genuinely priced pretty aggressively within the channel to win a lot of business. And then finally, our market share. We're a relatively well-known organization, especially for the IT channel. We are #1 in surge, wall mount racks, and KVM switches, and we're #2 for UPSs, PDUs, and connectivity within the channel. So when people hear the name Tripp Lite, they usually understand who we are and at least a portion of what we do. Okay, so why Tripp Lite? It's outside of server storage and the networking pieces of your customer's data center. We offer everything else that surrounds that. So it's a one throat to choke, one back to pat scenario where you don't have to reach out to 3 or 4 vendors to build out the data center infrastructure. You can reach out to one company, Tripp Lite, that can provide all of what's on the screen plus more. So a place to put it, we have hundreds of different types of rack configurations in order to house all of the sensitive electronics that customers might own. Obviously, a place to power it. That's where our UPSs and PDUs come into play. And I know a majority of people on the call are very familiar with power due to the nature of your relationship with Eaton, but it is also something that we support and provide. And as we integrate more and more with Eaton, we're going to have a blended best of breed from both organizations moving forward for the power quality portion. KVMs, so anything that is a headless piece of device like a server or SAN, a KVM will allow them to monitor that via either on-site or remotely. We have around 3,000 different cables and connectivity SKUs currently on hand, most of which are copper and fiber networking cable, but we do run the gamut of docking stations, display mounts, mobile power devices, and then finally our auxiliary cooling. So as everybody knows, IT equipment does not like to be overheated. They like to have a nice cool environment, and so we do offer a nice portion of auxiliary cooling products that will help cool the trouble spots within your customer's IT framework. Okay, so here are some different applications where Tripp Lite is potentially a really good fit here. So the traditional data center, that is our bread and butter. That's your traditional MDF and IDF closets that you can be found, from anywhere from a college campus all the way up to a Fortune 50 company. That's just, scale is just the only difference in that capacity. So on the power portion, we do offer over 380 different UPS models of all different flavors. So your desktop UPS is like you see here on your screen, which are going to be something that goes underneath like your desk to power up like your laptop, your dual monitor setup, all the way up to the monster 3-phase UPSs that support hundreds of thousands of watts of capacity. We handle it all. PDUs, we have over 180, close to 200 different models available on that as well, from your traditional horizontal rack mount ones, basic ones like this one, that's like a glorified power strip, all the way up to the monster vertical PDUs that have switched outlet control that allows you to reboot pieces of connected equipment remotely, saving your customer time and money from sending a technician on site to do a hard reboot. Rack enclosures, we are really big in the channel on our rack enclosures. We have close to 150 models currently available, anywhere from wall mount to your floor standing. And within that, we do have specialty types of racks, ones that are seismically rated for our friends out in the West Coast who have some issues with earthquakes, as well as IP54 rated enclosures, which are for harsh environments that kind of mitigate any sort of air particulate or moisture that could be in the air that could negatively affect the equipment housed inside. When it comes to connectivity portion, we have a myriad of different cables. We also have, the patch panels, the wall covers, etc., in order to properly connect those pieces of equipment. We have 15 different models of cooling solutions, anywhere from this model right here that kind of looks like a t-shirt cannon, which is on casters, and it's more for trouble areas for like small IDF closets, all the way up to in-row cooling solutions that provide 60,000 watts of BTUs for cooling. And then we have a wide array of KVMs, anywhere from the on-site desktop ones all the way up to your IP remote KVMs that will allow up to 5 concurrent users to access the pieces of equipment from anywhere in the world. And for our federal friends, we also have a wider range of NIAP certified KVMs, which comply with strict government standards when it comes to cybersecurity. Okay, healthcare. So Tripp Lite actually has one of the largest breadth of healthcare related power protection pieces of equipment in the channel. Our UPSs and surge protectors and power strips can conform to what's called our UL 60601-1 and UL 1363A compliance, which is just inside this patient care vicinity right here, which is the 6 feet around the actual bed. The power portion is a lot more heavily regulated due to the fact that the serious nature of what's being done. So it kind of mitigates the amount of leakage current that comes out of the outlets on the UPSs and the power strips to make sure that the customer is as safe as, or not the customer, the patient is as safe as possible when pieces of equipment are being operated on. Charging carts, we actually have unveiled a brand new charging cart that actually has UV light built in between it, which allows it to sanitize the pieces of equipment utilizing that UV light when it's not in use. So that's a really big top of mind seller for us right now. A lot of our UPSs and surge protectors also have antimicrobial paint and coating on it, mitigating any sort of bacterial infection that might occur outside of a normal UPS or piece of power strip. We also do a lot of mobile power kits. These are usually OEM'd through some other healthcare manufacturers who have mobile carts for nurses and doctors to wheel computers from one room to another. So we have the mobile power in there to provide, up to a day's worth of power to these laptops while they're being used, going from patient care area to patient care area. And then some wall-mounted racks for things typically outside the patient care vicinity. Usually maybe a small network switch or a small router would go inside of that. Retail. So retail is another really big one that comes to mind when we're talking about Tripp Lite. A lot of retail is going to be using the small desktop flat pack UPSs. Anytime you encounter a point of sale, whether that is at a grocery store or a clothing store or a department store, typically speaking, that point of sale is going to be powered and protected by a small little UPS like this. So if power does go out, it will give you 4 to 5 minutes of runtime, so you can complete your last transaction, your last sale, and then power everything down until power is restored. Charging carts is also really big in retail, just because of the fact that if you've been in an Apple store recently, most of the Apple employees have iPads with them at all times, and those act as mobile cash registers. So at the end of the day, they need a place to securely store and charge those, and we have over 50 different models currently available. A DVR lockbox. So anytime we're talking about retail, physical security is going to be paramount to any retail location. So this DVR lockbox is going to store a DVR, for use for security cameras. It's 5U, so you can also put a small UPS or network switch in there as well. And if you take a look at the sides here, there's actually built-in fans on each side of this lockbox to ensure things stay nice and cool. Kind of already went over wall-mounted racks earlier. Power strips also for any non-mission critical pieces of equipment that just need to be powered would be useful for this. If we're talking about like digital displays, a lot of times the digital display is not mission critical, so it's not going to need a UPS attached to it. But a lot of times you will find a power strip that's kind of attached behind that display, hidden, to help power that. And speaking of displays, we have over 70 different models of display mounts available, anywhere from your traditional fixed that just hold up the display on the wall, all the way up to full articulation with both tilt and 360 motion control. And usually we're pretty competitive price-wise when it comes to our competitors like Chief or Peerless. Education. Education is a really big category here at Tripp Lite, especially in the K-12 space. So obviously charging carts are going to be another big play there, just because of the fact that most school districts nowadays, and for the past, I'd say at least 10 years, are going through one-to-one deployments where each student is either going to be paired with a Chromebook or for an iPad for learning purposes. So at the end of the day, those iPads or Chromebooks need to be securely stored and charged somewhere. So again, that's why the charging carts are here and available. On the cables and connectivity portion, docking stations are a really big seller on the education front, especially with distance learning. A lot of times students are being asked to learn remotely nowadays, and in order to do that, a lot of these Chromebooks or iPads are going to be connected to a docking station and then mirrored up to 1 or 2 monitors for a better learning experience for students. Surge protectors are also really big for anything that's not mission critical, anything that's not part of the network backbone, because school districts are going to be a little bit more price conscious. So in this little classroom setup right here, most of these iPad devices, they're not going to run for an entire school day. especially if they're a little bit older. So in order to help power those, usually a lot of school districts will have surge protectors located close by each desk, so the student can keep their piece of equipment plugged in all day long. Display mounts are still very top of mind. And something that's not on this slide that I'd like to talk about as well is E-rate season. So for those unaware, E-rate is a federal funding program that allows school districts to receive federal funding to ensure that students and the school have internet connectivity. So for Tripp Lite, for example, our UPSs, our racks, and our networking cables are all E-rate eligible. So if you do have education customers, K-12 education customers, ask about E-rate, and we have an entire team dedicated to E-rate for the entire year. Pro AV. So Pro AV is a new strategic growth objective here at Tripp Lite. So it's more than just cables and connectivity. We're actually going after the large digital display manufacturers like your Samsungs or your ViewSonics of the world. Display mounts are really big here, as well as our AV cabling. We have a wide array of different AV cables. I'd also like to say that we just recently launched a mobile interactive display of our own, which is good for Pro AV. It's also good for education. So it is a 65-inch interactive display that has both Windows 10 and Android functionality into it. And it comes on a cart, a mobile cart, and it's attached with a big battery. So you're able to get 90 minutes of power out of that battery without it being plugged into a wall outlet. So this is really important for customers who, again, are price conscious, and instead of purchasing a interactive display for every single room, they can purchase just a few and then just wheel it from room to room as needed. Industrial. Industrial is another one of our newer strategic growth objectives here at Tripp Lite. We're kind of a new player into that area. What's really big in the industrial is our industrial surge protectors. So they have the all metal housing. A lot of them are safety oriented, so they come with they're colored yellow instead of white to have them offset against the other pieces of equipment. And they're ruggedized, so they can take a beating. They can take something accidentally falling on it, and they're still going to operate. Cooling solutions are big there because a lot of these industrial areas are not very well. The HVAC system isn't really usually up to snuff in the industrial space as it is in the traditional IT data center. So we do have, again, 15 plus models of auxiliary cooling solutions to help with those problem areas. On the rack enclosure front, we do have those IP54 rated enclosures I was talking about earlier. That's going to help with any sort of dust or air particulate or moisture in the air. It's going to filter that out. The rack enclosures have built-in air filters to filter all that out. They're very well enclosed, and because of that, they come with 6 120-volt fans built inside of it to keep the equipment properly cooled within. Power inverters are really big in the industrial space as well, just because of the fact that UPSs are designed for IT loads. So like traditional like servers, storage, switches, anything that is what's called an inductive load, which has to do with a motorized component. So if we're talking about any piece of industrial equipment that's highly motorized, UPSs are generally not a good fit there. And that's what we'll bring in our power inverters that will not only clean the power, but it will also provide enough battery backup runtime for that piece of equipment to do its job. One of the big areas right now that we're seeing a lot of success with power inverters would be 3D printing. So 3D printers are getting bigger and bigger and more complex, and being able to print a lot more complex things at a faster rate. And in order for that to support that, we need to have power inverters that can handle that load and provide a specific amount of runtime to allow that 3D printer to finish its job if a power event does happen before shutting down. And then we do have some industrial connectivity products like shown right here. This is actually some fiber cabling that has these enclosures around it, and these cables are actually rated to be able to stand in a couple inches of water and still operate. So if anybody has any industrial customers, please feel free to reach out to your HM Cragg rep, and then they'll reach out to us, and we can talk about industrial needs. And then, finally, remote workspace. This is a very topical subject as well, just because of the fact that most people are still either 100% remote, work from home, or they're kind of returning a little bit into the office, but it's still kind of a blended work environment. That's how it currently is here at Tripp Lite. So in order to fulfill that need, a lot of employees need to have a good setup at home in order to do their job effectively. And so, for example, this table right here, I actually have this in my work from home setup at home. It actually has a little control panel here, and it's motorized. So it takes a typical 515 outlet like you see in your house, plug it in, and you're able to either sit or stand at the push of a button. And they actually come with presets. So I have 2 presets on mine, so I know exactly the height that I'm gonna get as soon as I push that button. Power strips, very to connect anything that's not mission critical. So if anybody still has a printer or anything like that, it would be probably connected to a power strip or to a surge protector and not to a UPS. I do have a UPS at the bottom of my desk right now to help power and protect my laptop configuration, as well as my dual monitor setup, because of the fact that if I am working on something that's mission critical, the last thing I want to do is have a power outage at the house and lose all the work that I had previously done. And then display mounts. So we have a wider range of display mounts as well, anywhere from your traditional single monitor display mount that's fixed all the way up to a 4-monitor setup. A lot of them have articulating arms that can allow you to view the monitor at any angle that you want, or if you want to change from landscape to portrait mode, that allows you to do that as well. And then I want to talk a little bit about our edge-ready micro data center. So this is something that has been here at Tripp Lite for probably a good year and a half. We're currently working with Eaton on getting some Eaton power put into our Tripp Lite racks to do kind of a hybrid edge-ready micro data center. But basically, what it is it's a data center in a box. So it allows your customer to basically have one SKU, and they can pretty much have every piece of Tripp Lite equipment they can order off of one SKU instead of a la carte. And they come in a bunch of different form factors and flavors. We have our low voltage, our 120 volt, all the way up to our high voltage 208, 240. They come in both wall mounts and floor standing racks. These ones that look like they're bamboo, these are actually our quiet racks. So basically, for some setups, depending on the customer, a lot of their IT equipment, like for example, a K-12 school, a lot of them don't have a dedicated IDF closet, so they actually have to use the classroom as their de facto IDF closet. So with a traditional rack, you're going to hear all of the noise that a UPS or a server, has with normal operation, which can be distracting to both the teacher and the students. So what we did was we created a rack that actually minimizes the decibel level of that equipment, and then there is fans inside of there that will cool the piece of equipment, as there's not going to be really any ventilation because it's enclosed. For our base configurations, we have 40 models that are currently on our website that are just standard, and within those 40 models, you're going to get a rack enclosure, which is either floor standing or wall mount again. You'll get a UPS system with a pre-installed network management card, so you're going to be able to view that over the network. It comes with a temperature humidity sensor that actually is magnetic, and it attaches magnetically right to the rack. It's pretty cool. And that will allow the administrator to understand the temperature and humidity levels within the rack and make sure that they're at ideal temperatures to maximize the lifespan for the pieces of equipment that's inside that rack. And then it's going to come with a standard either basic or metered PDU that's going to go in there to help connect the UPS to the other pieces of equipment. Where it gets really cool is the custom configuration. So anything outside those base 40 models is going to be a custom configuration, which is you're going to need to call up your HM Cragg rep in order to fulfill this, because it's going to be a little bit more complex. We can do anything from, we can do a switch PDU, which again, when I said earlier, gives you the individual outlet control ability remotely, so you can power cycle pieces of connected equipment remotely instead of having to go on site to do that. External battery packs for extended runtime. So depending on the customer, some customer only needs 15 to 30 minutes, which usually a UPS standalone UPS can typically do by itself. Anything outside of that is when we're going to need to talk about having external battery packs to help out with that extended runtime capability. Closed coupled cooling. So it's number 7 right here at the very bottom. That's one of our self-contained cooling units I was talking about earlier. It's rack mounted at the bottom of the rack. It takes up 8U of rack space. It sucks in the cold air, pushes it up through all the connected equipment, and blows hot air out the back. It's also self-contained, so it comes with a built-in condenser and evaporator, so you don't have to worry about any sort of drainage issues with that piece of equipment. KVM switch with or without the LCD console. So again, if you want to manage those headless devices like a server or a SAN, we have plenty of different KVM models that can be contained within this MDC. We have a door sensor kit for intrusion detection. So a lot of our customers, we do have customers who are colos. So the administrator would get an alert every time that particular rack door is open, and ensure that it's an authorized person who's actually accessing that piece of equipment. Airflow management. So most of our MDCs come standard with blanking panels. So again, that helps mitigate the heat by dissipating airflow. And then we have a bunch of different cable managers, both horizontal and vertical, that usually attach at the back of the rack to keep all those cables to the sides of the rack, that will also help with airflow and help with accessing the pieces of equipment inside that rack for a tech to come on site when troubleshooting needs to be done, or replacement for that matter. And then, extra protection for harsh environments. So I was talking about those IP54 rated racks before. We can also do the seismic rated racks, again, for customers out on the West Coast who have a lot of tremors, and pieces of equipment don't really like that much movement. So we do have seismic rated racks as well in order to help mitigate that problem. And why do an edge-ready micro data center? There's a few different reasons. One is after receipt of order, a standard configuration will ship within 3 business days. And anything that requires customization after receipt of order, that's going to ship within 5 business days. Now this also includes, there's 2 different ways you can do in a micro data center. You can either do it as a kit, where you order 1 SKU and then all of the associated products come on a pallet, they ship out to you. You're responsible for racking and stacking everything. The other one is we'll actually assemble it for you here in-house, and then we'll ship it out to your location. And so if that's the case, your HM Cragg rep will work with one of my engineers directly on a rack elevation drawing. We'll understand exactly where the Tripp Lite pieces of equipment need to be racked and stacked. And then it's up to you or the end user to rack and stack the additional pieces of equipment that will be going inside of that rack. Very competitive pricing. So you're going to get 5 points deducted off of your price over doing this via a la carte. And that's without talking about bid pricing or deal registration, just straight off the bat. If you do an MDC instead of a la carte pricing, you're going to get 5 points added onto that. It's also going to help validate the configuration. So not only is an engineer from my team going to make sure that the UPS, the PDUs, the cooling, everything is perfectly sized, that it's going to not only fit inside the rack, but it's also going to be adequate for the devices it's going to help support. But also the specialists who actually are doing the manual rack and stack in our warehouse, they're going to turn every piece of equipment on, make sure that everything's working, and help minimize any sort of dead on arrivals coming out to your location or your customer's location. And then also we're going to, most of these are going to come with shock pallets to help support stable shipment and reshipment. So anything that comes pre-assembled is still going to go on a truck. And a lot of times, depending, I know here in Chicago, we do have an issue with potholes. So being on a shock pallet can help minimize any sort of damage that could occur during the shipping process. A little bit about my team specifically, my pre-sales team, my sales engineering team. If you need to get us, get us involved. So, your first step again is to reach out to your HM Cragg rep. They'll be your first point of contact to get things set up. If things get a little bit too hairy and you need some more expert advice on the Tripp Lite side of things, my team is here willing and ready to, take phone calls, emails. Average tenure on my team is 13 years of experience. I have 4 engineers here. It's been over 20 years of experience. So we've seen everything. So you're most likely not going to surprise us with any sort of oddball questions that come out of left field. My team is responsible for being technically competent in all 6,000 products that we do offer. So any questions on any products that Tripp Lite currently offers, we're gonna know the answer to, and if we don't, we're gonna find the answer out relatively quickly. We have on-demand conference calls, so if you and your HM Cragg rep call us directly, one of my engineers can get on the phone with everybody on the fly and discuss application and hopefully get you an answer sooner rather than later. And basically, we're also trained to thoroughly profile an opportunity. So we're not just going to talk about UPSs. If we're talking about UPSs, we're going to talk about, what are UPSs housed in? We're going to talk about racks. We're going to talk about PDUs. We're going to talk about auxiliary cooling. We're going to go all throughout our product line to help maximize the deal size for you at the end of the day. The last thing we want to do is leave money on the table. So we want to make sure that we gobble up the entire share of wallet if possible. And then finally, if you need if you already have a BOM in mind, but you're not quite sure, you're uncertain if it's the correct solution, we're here to help validate that it is accurate. So it minimizes any sort of RMA situation for you. For those do-it-yourselfers, we do have a really customer-friendly website that is available to everybody. That's how my engineering team does their job. We utilize the website to build our BOMs. So there's a really nifty tool called the competitor cross-reference. So that basically, you can take a competitor SKU from like APC or Averta, for example. You can copy and paste that SKU into this text box right here, click find matches, and hopefully the website's going to spit out a Tripp Lite equivalent for you. So that's a really nifty tool that I know a lot of not only our internal salespeople, but also our partners use on a daily basis to help build out their own configurations. Okay, so let's talk about the pricing component. So bid pricing for minimums. So for connectivity related pieces of equipment, that's going to be $500 for a bid minimum. Anything outside of connectivity, it's going to be $2,500. And this is just bid pricing. This isn't deal registration. This isn't competitive pricing. This is just volume-based pricing. There's a few pieces of information that are going to be required in order to get your bid pricing to you. End user name and location is one. The reseller name is number 2, and then the Tripp Lite product numbers as well as the quantities. If you can give us those 3 pieces of information, you're going to get bid pricing. Now let's talk about deal registration. So I know it's a little bit of an eye chart, but I'll kind of give you the 1,000-foot overview of what this entails. So deal registration is protected pricing. It means you're going to get X amount of margin advantage over any of your competitors. And there's a couple of different ways we can achieve this. So minimums for registration are $5,000 for connectivity, and anything outside of connectivity or if it's combined. So if let's say it's connectivity and it's power, then it's going to be $10,000 in order to qualify for registration. Over here on the right, there are minimum level protection levels, and I will emphasize minimum. So we take everything by an opportunity by opportunity basis. So depending on the opportunity, you might get a lot deeper of a discount depending on the amount of information you can provide us. So anything that is our lower level 750 VA, tower type of UPSs, our 3-phase PDUs and accessories, you're going to get a minimum of 3 points protected margin. On our line interactive tower and rack mount UPSs, you'll get 5 points. On anything online double conversion that's greater than 750 VA, as well as our charging stations, our floor standing racks and accessories, you'll get 7 points of margin minimum. Anything on the wall mounted racks or 3-phase UPSs, you'll get 10 points of margin. And on those micro data centers, you're going to get at least 12 points of margin. And I'll be honest with you, the micro data centers, it's it's one unique part number. So it's going to be extremely difficult for any of your competitors to shop this out. The only people who know what consists of that unique product part number is Tripp Lite, HM Cragg, and yourselves. So there's not going to be an opportunity for them to shop that out. When it comes to the registration policy, the T's and C's, obviously first contact your HM Cragg rep to get the ball rolling here. Here internally at Tripp Lite, I can tell you that registration, that if it's below $25,000, it's going to be given on a first come, first served basis. It is opportunity based, so you can't register an entire customer for a quarter. It has to be based off of a net new opportunity. Anything that is a publicly available RFP, or it's a Tripp Lite call out where it's on paper calling out Tripp Lite products, and that's the bomb, you're not going to receive registration on that just because of the fact that we already know about it. At that point, you will get bid pricing, which will give you an equal playing field with all of your competition. And that registration expires quarterly. Registration above 25K, you're going to need the end user and reseller information. Application information must be provided, and what we mean by that is usually that's going to necessitate that one of my engineers gets involved. We need to understand what's actually the business need and make sure that we're providing the appropriate solution and that we're not oversizing or overpricing ourselves out of conversation. Registration again is opportunity based and must be a net new opportunity. Can't be a Tripp Lite call out or a publicly available RFP. And that registration also expires quarterly. The good news about the stuff that's above 25K is as long as you're working with your HM Cragg rep and engineer on my team, we are going to be aware of when that deal registration is going to expire, and we will usually reach out to both of you within a week prior to it expiring to ensure that if the deal hasn't closed yet and you need to have that registration extended, we can help facilitate that for you. So please keep that in mind. And that's about it, everybody. I know that was a lot of information to get through in a relatively short amount of time. I apologize if I read through anything. I just wanted to make sure that I got to all the content that I could, and still leave a few minutes left for Q&A. This is just a general overview. So I have worked with Dan, and we are going to schedule a few more of these trainings that are going to be more product specific. I know one of them is going to be racks. Another one I think is going to be cables and connectivity. So moving forward, we're going to give you some more really cool information and do a little bit more deeper of a dive. So I want to thank you for your time. At this point, I'll hand it back over, and I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
Thanks everyone for attending today. If you have any needs or any questions, please feel free to reach out to Mike or myself. We'll work with the Tripp Lite team to facilitate whatever you need. Again, thank you so much. Thank you, Corey and Dan and Mike, and everybody have a wonderful day.